Start your habit of continuous learning today. Visit nomadphp.com.
Welcome to Nomad PHP Lightning Talks. I'm Joe Ferguson. Nomad PHP Lightning Talks are a 10-minute talk that gives a high-level overview or an in-depth look at a small portion of a PHP-related topic. Lightning Talks are a great way for new speakers to build their speaking resume and for long-time speakers to test drive new talk ideas. Right now we have Ilan Gitter, and he's going to talk about Vue JS as a toolbox. Please make sure you visit Joined In after the talk and leave Ilan some feedback. Ilan, take it away.
All right, can everyone see that?
Yep, you're good.
All right, great. So, as mentioned, I'm going to talk about Vue JS and how to use it as a toolbox and incorporate it into any project that you may have. It can feel pretty daunting to get going with a new technology or something that you haven't really gotten into, but I guarantee that it's really not as bad as you might think. So, about me, my name is Ilan Gitter, and I'm a web developer at DNL Media. We're a company that focuses purely on nonprofits, and so all of our clients are nonprofits. You can find me on Twitter at Behind the Mule, although I'm not active, so it's fine, but you can still go and follow me if you want for the occasional tweet that I might have, or you can go to my website, elangitter.com, and I will be posting a follow-up within a week to this specific talk, giving more resources and a recap of all of this. So anytime you're getting started with a new technology and you want to bring it into the fold, it's kind of hard to know how much to do with it and how to use it most effectively. It really depends on the project, as with anything, but more than anything, you should just be thinking about what parts of your site need reactive components and which places might benefit from the UX experience that Vue.js could bring. So you could use it like jQuery and just sprinkle it in here and there. You could focus on one component within your site and just use it there, or you can even expand that out to a full user story, or lastly, you could do a full rewrite with it in mind. So more than anything else, you have to remember that Vue.js and jQuery are just tools. They're just libraries. They do not make each other obsolete. Same with React and all these other things. It really is no more than that. And they take different perspectives and different way of looking at code. So jQuery, on one hand, is more DOM-based. The DOM is the single point of truth in a lot of senses. If you're going to, for example, just monitor a checkbox and update a labels class based on the checkbox, whether or not it's checked, in order to, I don't know, show a custom checkbox image or something like that, then you would have to constantly be checking on the DOM to see if that checkbox is indeed checked. Whereas in Vue, all you need to do is just bind it to the checkbox itself with the vModel check that's in there, and it will automatically link it to checked within the data object that you see at the bottom on the right. You don't even need to include this data object. It'll automatically put it in, but it's good to be verbose and specific about all the data that you're using. So both of these work. Both of them bind the class checked to the label. It just depends on how you're thinking about the DOM. So because it's not always checking the DOM, it's not always figuring out if the input is actually checked, Vue.js can update the DOM much quicker. It's a lot less expensive to check a virtualized version of the DOM than it would be to actually go in and check every single time. If you want to look at components and maybe just redo a part of your site and just focus on one component, then think about what part of your page would benefit most from reactivity and think about data flow within that part of the page. Start with something small and always make components composable. So in this example, we have the Nomad PHP shop page, and you can see that there are a few components that are boxed off. So you could do the shop component, and within that, you actually could have subcomponents as individual items. And within that, you could even have subcomponents such as a button. In this example, you would want to make sure that the API for the button is flexible enough to be able to take the different titles, such as add to cart or subscribe or join the herd, as seen on the right in the newsletter section. The specific parts that make up a component are the template, which is at the top, and in Vue JS you are able to declare custom tags, so that makes it very easy for a client to consume. Let's say you needed to create a piece for a client and you want them to be able to reuse it within their site. Well, then it's a lot easier for them to just use something like this rather than a full HTML markup for that section. And another thing that makes up the component is the data structure, which you can see on the right, which could be pulled in via an API or pre-populated in another way. There are methods that you can apply to a component. They're not shown here, but it works just like any PHP class where you just give it or apply it to the Vue instance. And lastly, you can insert other components within components. So in this specific example, you see that an item is part of a larger component called a store. And that v4 just cycles through all the different items and gives that data down into that component called item. You can expand the same thing out into an entire user story. So if you wanted, you could maybe do a full checkout experience in Vue JS. That way it is more reactive. Maybe the user experience is improved. It keeps people engaged. Maybe there's more, they don't have to worry about the page refreshing or anything like that. You're able to have smoother animations. It might be a good idea to go with something like that. And lastly, you might decide to just start all over. And sometimes it's just easier to start from scratch. I'll give you a second if you want to read the little comic from XKCD. If you do choose to start over, then there are two main ways to choose a foundation. You either can do it as the front end and still keep PHP or something in the back end, or you could go full JavaScript and use Node in the back end and Vue in the front end. If you do Vue in the front end, well, then you can just create an API for the front end to consume. So if it was a news shop component or something, well, then you can have an endpoint that you can get all the data for the shop from in order to populate it. And then you can just have the front end be a collection of Vue components that you can embed into your templating system. You can even use Vue Router for navigation if you so choose, so that way it doesn't refresh the page and you're still able to use all the API endpoints. And you can use Vue Resource in order to make the web request to the API. It's analogous to the jQuery AJAX functions that are there, but it's specifically written with Vue in mind. If you do something like this, I would recommend going to this example site. They did exactly this thing, and it is completely open source, and you can go through it for ideas. Or you can do JavaScript everywhere and just use Node on the back end and Vue on the front end. If you do this, boilerplate is available here. It's pretty decent. I won't cover this too much because PHP is awesome, and I don't know why we would do this. And if you did want to get started quickly, the Vue CLI is great to just scaffold out a quick project. I've personally used the Webpack one a few times, and it's extremely helpful to get set up running fast. So it scaffolds out a whole component. It gives you a place for tests. It gives you the whole build process, so you don't have to worry about how to set up Webpack or Browserify or any of these things. And it really gets you going fast. It also has compilation for ES6, and I believe it has hot reloading in order to see the components refreshing in real time. So what about a specific PHP framework? What if you want to incorporate it into Symfony or Laravel or WordPress or Drupal or anything? Well, at the end of the day, it's just JavaScript. So you use it like you would any other bundle. And as long as you're including it, then you have access to the Vue components and you're able to use it. So don't overthink it and just know that it's just JavaScript and you can use it wherever you would anything else. Vue 2.0 is coming out fairly soon. I think it's in release candidacy now, so nothing of the API should change or anything. It is simplified and it is faster. So if you have used it, take a look to see which functions have been deprecated. I know a decent amount of them have been deprecated in order to make the whole API more simple. The virtual DOM now replaces directives, which means it's a lot faster. The virtual DOM is just a JavaScript object version of the real DOM. And because it's just a JavaScript object, it's a lot faster to find out which components need updating and everything like that. It also allows server-side rendering because of the virtual DOM, because then you can just create HTML strings from the virtual DOM. That isn't extremely helpful for the Laravel or Symfony or WordPress world. However, there was Evan Yu, the creator of Vue, did mention at Laracon that they do have plans to create a small node server that you could send your Laravel project to, and it would automatically render those components with everything pre-populated. So it would pretty much do server-side rendering for you, and you would still be able to use PHP in the backend. If you want more resources, here's a great list of resources, including awesome Vue and learning series done by Jeffrey Way over at Laracast. And if you want to learn more about Vue 2.0, then there's a great screencast that has been done, and here's also a link to the workshop that he did at Laracon. So thank you all for listening, and thank you to Nomad PHP for having me.
Thanks for joining us for another Nomad PHP Lightning Talk. If you'd like to give a Lightning Talk, please email me, joe@nomadphp.com. Please make sure you visit Join In and leave Ilan some feedback.